Day from the International Space Station Flight Control Room here at the Johnson Space Center in Houston. Mission Control with you as we are preparing for the arrival of 3 new residents to the International Space Station. At this hour, the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft that launched just 2 hours and 16 minutes ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan is rapidly approaching the neighborhood of the station, now just about 30 kilometers separating the Soyuz from its destination, the Rassvet module, and a docking to the Earth-facing port of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. At this hour, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is on console here in Mission Control. Flight Director Chris Dobbins, who is in the middle of this cluster of flight controllers on console. To his left is Flight Director Ronak Dave, and to his right, spacecraft communicator Jessica Meir, the veteran astronaut who launched just 4 years ago on a Soyuz MS-15 spacecraft to the International Space Station for her long-duration mission. Everything is proceeding normally since the Soyuz lifted off at 10:44 and 35 seconds a.m. Central Time, which was 8:44 p.m. in the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. The vehicle arced out to the northeast, and 8 minutes and 45 seconds after launch, arrived in its preliminary orbit, deploying its solar arrays and navigational antennas to begin the express lane to-orbit 3-hour trek to the International Space Station. Flight controllers who are in control of the Soyuz operations today are in the Russian Mission Control Center that you see here in this balcony view in the Russian Control Center outside of Moscow in the town of Korolyov. They are talking directly to the Soyuz crew. Oleg Kononenko is the Soyuz commander, and he is flanked to his left by first-time flyer Nikolai Chub of Roscosmos, and to his right, NASA astronaut Loral O'Hara. This trio, with Kononenko making his 5th flight into space, are flying under the call sign of Antares. That's the call sign for their Soyuz spacecraft as they approach the International Space Station, where they will conduct a fly-around of the station at a distance of about 400 meters, a 54-degree fly-around of the station, to precisely align their forward docking probe with the Rassvet module. They will go into a few seconds of station keeping, if that is required, to allow the Russian flight control team to make final calculations on the alignment of their spacecraft to the Rassvet module before they press in for a docking at a rate of about 1/10 of a meter per second, docking scheduled at 1:56 p.m. Central Time, 2:56 p.m. Eastern Time. Earlier today, about 2 hours and 45 minutes before launch, the 3 crew members, Loral O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub, boarded the stairs to their vehicle as it vented liquid oxygen behind them, fully fueled, ready for launch from Launch Pad 6, Site 31 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. They were sent off by NASA and Roscosmos managers as they posed for that traditional picture on the stairs leading to the elevator that would take them up to the entranceway, the descent module of the Soyuz MS-24 spacecraft. After waves and final farewells, the crew climbed the stairs, boarded the spacecraft, and awaited the final hours of the countdown. With everything proceeding on track, the countdown moved into its final phase, with engine ignition having occurred about 12 seconds before launch. The command for engine start was given after the second of the 2 tower umbilicals separated from the side of the Soyuz rocket. Engine ignition and liftoff occurring again at 8:44 p.m. Baikonur time. The engines built up thrust, the hold-down posts were released, and the Soyuz 2.1A booster was on its way. The Soyuz arced out to the northeast from the Central Asian Desert Spaceport. About 1 minute and 10 seconds after liftoff, passed through the area of maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle, basically going supersonic at that point, and 1 hour and 1 minute and 58 seconds after launch, the first stage shut down. The solid boosters on the side of the vehicle fell away, and the second stage took over the operation. The yaw, pitch, and roll control of the vehicle was rock steady. Structural parameters on the vehicle were perfect as the vehicle continued its climb to orbit. About 4 minutes and 55 seconds into the ascent phase, the second stage shut down, and the third stage of the Soyuz took over, completing the 8-minute, 45-second climb to orbit. Once the Soyuz completed its work and the spacecraft itself separated from the third stage of the Soyuz booster, the solar arrays and navigational antennas on the Soyuz were deployed as planned, and the chase was on as the Soyuz began to close the gap between itself and the International Space Station.
We saw a bright light, and I think we have the ISS visible. And MCC Moscow, we already have been holding the push-to-talk button. Depress and hold.
The conversation you're hearing between the interpreter, who is interpreting conversations between the flight controllers in Korolyov and Kononenko aboard the Soyuz spacecraft. They're talking about all of the technical parameters for the final phase of the rendezvous. The crew went into automated rendezvous operations just 49 minutes after launch, and after conducting the first so-called DV burn, the DV-1 burn, a delta velocity burn that raised the altitude of the Soyuz to match that of the International Space Station and to fine-tune its path en route to the orbital outpost. The station and the Soyuz are currently flying over the South Pacific, about to begin a southwest and northeasterly swing that will take the two vehicles across south-central South America, up the eastern coast of South America, and back over the South Atlantic. En route to the station, the crew activated its core's automated rendezvous system, which basically is the autopilot, if you will, the automated rendezvous system that is flying the Soyuz towards the Rassvet module of the International Space Station. The core's checked out in good shape. In the unlikely event that a problem would occur with the core's system, the backup is Oleg Kononenko, the Soyuz commander, who would take over manual control of the flying of the Soyuz for its docking to the Rassvet module. This is unlike what you are commonly referred to on a Progress unpiloted spacecraft, where if the core system encountered a problem there, then the crew on board the station, the Russian cosmonauts on the station, would take over the manual flying of the unpiloted Progress vehicle through a joystick in the Zvezda service module called the Toru system, the telerobotically operated rendezvous system. But in this case, there is no such system associated with the Soyuz approach where the crew is on board. If the core has encountered a problem, it would be Kononenko taking over the flying of the vehicle. The course, however, is checked out. Everything is in good shape. We are expecting to receive television from the Soyuz vehicle shortly, as well as views of the Soyuz from external cameras on the International Space Station. Once again, the fly-around of the station is scheduled to begin at 1:36 p.m. Central Time, about 27 minutes from now, when the Soyuz will have reached a distance of about 400 meters away from the station. The fly-around itself will be 54 degrees to align the Soyuz with the Rassvet module and to initiate a brief, very brief period of station keeping before the command is issued for final approach, docking scheduled at 1:56 p.m. Central Time.
Expect at 21, copy at 21:11, expect transmitter activation. Copy. I already have it prepared. Okay, let me take a look. Range is 12.7, 15.9, approaching range rate. Copy.
The Soyuz now about 12 kilometers away from the International Space Station as the two vehicles fly over the South Pacific at an altitude of about 260 statute miles. Once docking occurs, there will be a brief period to allow the relative motion between the two vehicles flush against one another to dampen out, at which point the forward docking probe on the Soyuz will be retracted to basically pull the two docking interfaces close together against one another, enabling the initiation of the closing of the hooks on the Soyuz to form a hard mate. At that point, the cosmonauts on the station side of the docking interface, and Kononenko, Chub, and O'Hara will be conducting leak checks on either side of their respective vehicles before there's a depressurization of the vestibule, the passageway between the station and the Soyuz. That'll be the precursor to the opening of the hatches between the two vehicles. We expect hatch opening to occur in several stages. The hatches will begin to open somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4:10 p.m. Central Time, 5:10 p.m. Eastern Time. That will result in welcoming remarks by the crew after O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub float inside the station to begin their occupancy aboard the complex. The welcoming remarks are expected in the vicinity of about 4:30 p.m. Central Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. When the hatch is opened, the newly arrived crew members, O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub, will be greeted by two sets of crews living aboard the station who arrived at different times, comprising the Expedition 69 crew at the moment. The commander of Expedition 69 is Sergei Prokopiev on your left in the middle, along with Roscosmos cosmonaut Dmitry Petelin and the new U.S. record holder for the longest single spaceflight in history, Frank Rubio, who is en route along with Prokopiev and Petelin to 371 days in space. We'll talk more about that in a moment. They were recently joined by the SpaceX Dragon Crew 7 crew. From left to right, Konstantin Borisov of Roscosmos, Andy Mogensen of the European Space Agency, NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency Satoshi Furukawa. Those 7 crew members currently on the station will see their ranks expanded to 10 crew members once the Soyuz MS-24 crew, O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub, float on board, and they begin a handover with the Soyuz MS-23 crew. Rubio, Prokopiev, and Petelin are beginning preparations for their return to Earth, which is scheduled for September 27th, and a parachute-assisted landing on the steppe of Kazakhstan. That day will be providing coverage of hatch closure, undocking, and landing throughout the course of the overnight hours on September 27th that will culminate with a touchdown southeast of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan at 6:14 a.m. Central Time, 7:14 a.m. Eastern Time on September 27th. We're about 20 minutes away from the start of the fly-around of the Soyuz to the International Space Station. We are expecting to receive reciprocal views of both the Soyuz from the station and vice versa of the station from Soyuz a short time from now. The Soyuz about 9 kilometers away from the International Space Station, continuing to close the gap in this quick 2-orbit, 3-hour and change rendezvous that began with the perfectly and precisely timed launch of the Soyuz from the Baikonur Cosmodrome that took place just over 2.5 hours ago. Loral O'Hara, the NASA astronaut who launched today with Kononenko and Chub, will be spending 6 months on board the International Space Station. She will be returning to Earth on a different vehicle with a different pair of crew members next spring. Her backup for this launch, NASA's Tracy Dyson, will be launching on the Soyuz MS-25 spacecraft, along with Roscosmos cosmonaut Oleg and Belarus researcher Marina Vasilevskaya. They basically are a taxi crew that will bring Dyson up to the station and bring home O'Hara. Kononenko and Chub, who are embarking today on a 1-year mission to the station, will be returning to Earth next September with Tracy Dyson.
Range is 7 kilometers. 8.7 is range rate. Copy.
Since the launch took place 2 hours and 34 minutes ago, the Soyuz MS-24 has performed perfectly. No issues. All of the rendezvous burns so far have been spot on to close the gap between the Soyuz and the International Space Station. And again, waiting on board the 7 crew members of Expedition 69. And by the way, Expedition 69 becomes Expedition 70 at the time of the Soyuz MS-23 undocking on September 27th, as Rubio, Prokopiev, and Petelin depart the complex. The increments are measured between Soyuz undocking to Soyuz undocking. That's how the time is accrued in the history books for the International Space Station. And there you see in this view, as the station and Soyuz fly 260 miles over the Chilean mountains. That black dot is the Soyuz spacecraft, the MS-24, slowly but surely making its way toward its destination, the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the International Space Station. Before Rubio, Prokopiev, and Petelin depart the station, the day before, on September 26th, Andy Mogensen will take over command of the station, representing the European Space Agency, as he takes a handoff from Prokopiev, the current commander of the station, in a change of command ceremony that will be broadcast on NASA TV at 8:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Eastern Time. That'll be on September 26th.
Да, принято, подтверждаем.
8.3 range rate. Yes, we confirm.
A good view of the Soyuz MS-24 from external cameras on the International Space Station flying directly over Buenos Aires.
Range is 5 kilometers. 8.4 is range rate. Copy.
And as you heard in that translated communications between flight controllers and Korolyov and the crew on board the Soyuz, the distance is now less than 5 kilometers between Soyuz and the station, closing at a current rate of about 8 meters per second. Here in Mission Control in Houston, Flight Director Chris Dobbins has polled his team of flight controllers and has given his Russian Flight Director counterpart in Korolyov a go for final approach and docking. The International Space Station flying from southwest to northeast, as is the Soyuz vehicle against the limb of the Earth, as you can see in this spectacular view, passing just to the southwest of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and will be passing just to the east of the Brazilian capital of Brasilia.
Range is 4.87. Copy. Expect maneuver. Copy.
Less than 12 minutes now until the beginning of the fly-around of the Soyuz. Once again, the fly-around itself will be at a distance of 400 meters, about a 54-degree fly-around that will take just under 5 minutes to complete, followed by a very, very brief period of station keeping to enable flight controllers to assess the angular precision between the forward docking probe on the Soyuz and the Rassvet module prior to the point at which the command will be issued for the initiation of final approach.
2126 is maneuver.
Принято.
So the station has moved inaudible. Copy.
The Soyuz beginning a series of so-called impulse burns. These are very brief firings of their thrusters on the MS-24 spacecraft to fine-tune their path to the International Space Station. You can see the thruster firings right there, a good view, as the two vehicles, the station and Soyuz, fly 260 miles over eastern South America.
2748, we have Escada. 044 is acceleration. The burn is complete. The duration of the burn is 13 seconds. Burn was 561. Copy.
And as you can see, the Soyuz continues the series of impulse burns. This makes a more precision approach possible for the initiation of the fly-around that is expected about 7.5 minutes from now.
Range is 1.7, range rate is 4.5. Copy. The maneuver is complete. A station is in the center of the OSK in the OKU. Copy. Range is 1.5 kilometers. 4.24 is range rate. Copy.
Johannes Kepler in charge of this rendezvous, a 2-orbit rendezvous. Just 2 hours and 45 minutes ago, this vehicle was on the launch pad at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Now it's just about 1 kilometer away from the International Space Station.
It's going to do the next burn without maneuver. Copy on the poem. At the range of about 1 kilometer. Copy.
This view now of the International Space Station from the control panel in the Soyuz vehicle. That view is the familiar engineering cross-haired view that shows the Soyuz crew, Kononenko, Chub, and O'Hara, all of the various parameters of their approach. Just about 1 kilometer away, closing at a rate of about 4 meters per second.
Range is 1 kilometer. We confirm depot activation.
Принято.
Copy.
The Impulse 5 burn being conducted, the latest in the series of fine-tuning correction maneuvers. The Soyuz on a precise trajectory for its docking to the International Space Station. Docking scheduled about 23 minutes from now.
Range is 850 and range rate is 2.5. Approaching.
About 2.5 minutes to go before the fly around of the station by Soyuz. As the Soyuz and the International Space Station pass off the northern coast of South America back out over the South Atlantic, the two vehicles will skirt the northwest coast of Africa and then over the Mediterranean.
Range is 620. We have completed the retrograde burn, and then we are starting to approach.
Готовимся работать по 53-й странице, облет и причаливание.
Prepare to work for page 53. For the approach. 571 is the range and 7 for range rate. Copy.
A great view of the Soyuz MS-24. Just off the northern coast of South America, moving from southwest and northeast. Inside 1 kilometer from the International Space Station and a docking to the Rassvet module. Docking scheduled just 20 minutes from now. We are about to initiate the fly around of the station at a distance of 400 meters.
Range is 400, 1.3 is the range rate.
And at a distance of 400 meters, the fly around of the International Space Station by Soyuz MS-24 has begun. This will take about 3 minutes to complete. In the lower right-hand corner of your screen, the ultraflex solar arrays of the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo craft.
91, mark the current of range and range rate. Current range is 350, range rate 09. Copy. Also, monitor the Ka-15 generation for the approach, for the final approach. Currently, range is 330, 0.8 is range rate. Copy.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're watching live coverage of the approach of the next trio of residents to the International Space Station, the Soyuz MS-24, with Loral O'Hara of NASA and Roscosmos cosmonauts Oleg Kononenko and Nikolai Chub aboard, launched just under 3 hours ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome, now just 320 meters away from the Rassvet module of the International Space Station, which will be their docking port.
Two 260 as range, 0.4 is range rate. Copy.
All of the Soyuz functions are being conducted automatically. The core's automated rendezvous system is working perfectly, guiding the Soyuz in for its link up to the Rassvet module a short time from now. The Soyuz and the International Space Station now flying over southern Morocco.
Expect the final approach mode transition. Range is 230, 025 is range rate. We see the course mode final approach. Yes, we see the fly round. MRM-1 is in the OSK center. Range is 225 and 0.35 is range rate.
Fly around is complete. The final approach is expected shortly. The Soyuz and the station flying over the Moroccan desert.
We have the final approach. Причал K-15 ranges to 10. 0.19 is range rate. We're rotating along the roll. Be ready to execute page 53 in the OSK lighting. So we're going to turn on the light for OSK. We have the approach cone station keeping. We confirmed the headlight activation. We sent the command.
And Russian flight controllers in Korolyov have given the Soyuz the go for final approach. The Soyuz headlight has been turned on, as you can see. Final approach has now been initiated.
Final approach. On the approach display, sending the command, the final approach, Причал command. I sent the command. Range is 200.
200 meters separating the Soyuz from the station.
Acceleration for final approach.
The two vehicles about to pass just south of Casablanca.
Antares at 21:51, you're going to enter the eclipse. Okay, copy 21:51, ranges 187. We are accelerating to 0.85 for final approach. Copy. Range is 170, 0.85 is range rate. Antares, could you please expand the video so it covers the entire screen? Okay, copy. Expanding the video. Range is 140, is final approach 0.9. Copy. We're seeing the video. Anton, what was your request about the video, about the picture?
The Soyuz and the International Space Station heading into an orbital sunset. And this view now from the external video camera, the engineering camera on the outside of the Soyuz, showing the station and the docking port on the Rassvet module. 118 meters separating the two vehicles, closing at a rate of 0.6 meters per second.
The charge is 50%. 50 copy. Range is 100, 0.57 is range rate. Copy.
Less than 100 meters now separating the two vehicles.
The cupola module is right beneath us. Or above us.
The core's system will guide the Soyuz forward docking probe into perfect alignment with the docking target on the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station.
0 meters, 0.47 is range rate. Copy.
The other Soyuz that's on board the station, which will be the ride home for Sergei Prokopiev, Dmitry Petelin, and Frank Rubio, just 12 days from now, is docked to the space-facing side of the Russian segment to the Prishal module, that is the node module attached to the multipurpose laboratory module.
Range is 0.3 is range rate. We have the crosshairs aligned. So it's in the center.
Принято.
Copy.
Approaching 60 meters between Soyuz and station, closing at a rate of 0.2 of a meter per second. At the time of contact and capture, the Soyuz will be moving even slower at just about 1/10 of a meter per second.
We see the extending crosshair in the center of the OSK, in the center of underlying. So range is 50019, range rate. We have gas 7, gas 13, gas 17. Range is 47 meters. 0 to
The docking system is now powered up. In the center section of this three-section Soyuz vehicle are the three crew members, Loral O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub, just moments away from arriving at their new home in space.
Monitor gas 13, gas 17. Yes, we have confirmed that it's all set up. Work per page 55 at this time. Copy. Range is 35, 0.14 range rate. Copy. Range is 30 meters per OSK, 0.15 is range rate. Copy. We see solar array panels. Yes, it's already floating into our window view. The station is so large and we see it. Range is 25 meters, 0.12 range rate for approach.
As you heard, 25 meters separating the two vehicles, closing at a rate now of 1/10 of a meter per second. You can see the pentagon-shaped docking target at the base of the Rassvet module.
Copy. We have AR base, range is 20. Copy. How do you read me on VHF2?
This video now over Russian ground stations of the Soyuz. View of the final approach for docking, now less than 20 meters separating the two vehicles.
Anton, we didn't copy your last. We have road interference. Right now we're going to switch to VHF1. Antares, how do you read me on VHF1? We're really loud and clear. Well, there's there's a small bias, but we're straightening out. Range is, by my assessment, 17 meters and range rate is 0.1. Copy. We see the target and the eclipse is starting. Range is 10 meters by my assessment. 0.12 is range rate. Copy. I am approaching at 7 meters. Range is 7 meters and range rate is 0.12. Copy. I think it all works. We have a small bias and I think we're straightening out. 6 meters.
6 meters now separating the two vehicles.
Range rate. We have a small bias. 5 meters. 0.9.
Less than 5 meters now, standing by for contact and capture.
The bias is straightening out little by little. 3 meters, 0.1 range rate. We're expecting contact. Everything is nominal. 53:32. We confirm.
Contact confirmed. Docking confirmed at 1:53 p.m. Central Time, 2:53 p.m. Eastern Time, as the station and Soyuz flew 260 miles over Ukraine, south of Kyiv.
Work per page 56. Copy. Monitor the KDU parameters. Monitor the accelerometer activation. And also monitor the messages. Okay, K9 is no longer eliminated. Copy. I think we need to go to SSOP.
A flawless launch to docking scenario for Loral O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub. O'Hara and Chub arriving at the station for the first time. Kononenko, an old hat at this. This is his 5th flight into space. It was dead perfect from launch to docking. Docking occurring at 1:53 p.m. Central Time.
Tank section 1 and 2. Copy.
The transit from the launch pad at Baikonur to the International Space Station took 3 hours and 9 minutes.
S18. And closing RPV-1. MCC Moscow, we're closing RPV-1. We confirm. Okay, and before RPV-1 is closed. And we're going to read you the time. The time when we started that, okay. At 56. I will start the timer at 56 minutes. Should we turn off RPV-1? Inaudible. Sending RPV. First measurement. I'm ready to report the first measurement. We're ready to copy the first measurement. First measurement of pressure in the SS 792. Pressure in the BO is 822, and the assembly compartment is 877.
Ready for.
I am ready
And
to switch confidential electrical control on your go.
After retractment, if anything else, let me know.
Okay, copy. This time is 20.
Now, in
Could you repeat?
as soon as we restore
The last in the assembly compartment is the pressure is 877.
And we'll talk about config. Okay,
So the next measurement will be at 22:01 minutes.
Congratulations, everybody, with success.
Work for page 57 for monitoring. Copy. S13 21:57:10 is illuminated.
The forward docking probe has retracted, and the hooks are now driving close to form a hard mate between the two vehicles. Standing by for the completion of the closure of the hooks to form a hard mate between Soyuz and the Rassvet module.
Antares, Moscow, requesting launch burn 1280. Copy 1280.
Moscow 4. Dimitri, you can deactivate recording mode. Copy.
And we now have confirmation that the hooks are closed, so we have a hard mate now between Soyuz and the International Space Station. Just a flawless rendezvous and docking, no issues at all, as Oleg, Kononenko, Nikolai, Chub, and Loral O'Hara had a smooth and uneventful ride from the launch pad in Baikonur to their destination in space, the Rassvet module of the International Space Station. The 3 Soyuz crew members and the cosmonauts on board the station will now begin a series of leak checks on both sides of the docking interface to make sure that we have an airtight seal before the hatches will be opened to enable O'Hara, Kononenko, and Chub to enter the International Space Station.
Anton, how long did it take us to get to the station? Hold on, let me calculate. If we count from the liftoff moment, it took you pretty much exactly 3 hours. Wow, that is pretty fast. 220318, latches at position 18. Copy. Stand by for probe extension, monitor probe system operation, and report. Copy. Anton, second measurement. Descent module 729.
Flight controllers talking to the crew on board the Soyuz vehicle. The transit, actually, to be specific, was 3 hours and 9 minutes. The launch occurring at 10:44 a.m. Central Time, culminating with a docking at 1:53 p.m. Central Time.
Instrumentation compartment. SSWEP internal transfer mode complete. Instrumentation compartment pressure inaudible. Sending SVP command.
The crew is now going through a series of procedures to shut down some of the Soyuz systems that are no longer required now that the rendezvous is complete.
S11 out. Regime SSVO out. Copy. Execute per page 58. Copy. Sending ZAV journal command. ENPU 2 showing 0023D. ENPU 1 000319A. Copy. Standing by for 15-minute leak check measurements.
Антон, пока рут сурового можно в транспортное положение?
Anton, can we stow the handles to the transportation config? Anton, how copy? I copy. Let's wait until the results of the 15-minute measurement. Okay, I have a confirmation. You are go to stow the handles. Copy and work.
Рут убран.
Translational hand controller stowed.
РО убрано.
Rotational hand controller stowed. Copy.
So with the Soyuz now safely nestled in the Rassvet module of the International Space Station, the docking was perfect, as were all other aspects of the rendezvous following the Soyuz crew's launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome just about 3 hours and 20 minutes ago. It took 3 hours and 9 minutes from the launch pad to the International Space Station, a two-orbit rendezvous that now enables the Soyuz crew to begin the preparations for their hatch opening. We will take a quick break and be back on the air at 3:45 p.m. Central Time, 4:45 p.m. Eastern Time with hatch opening coverage. The hatch opening process will begin in the neighborhood of about 4:10 p.m. Central Time. This is not an exact science with a hatch opening. If you recall previous Soyuz arrivals at the station, we are also expecting welcoming remarks by the crew at about 4:30 p.m. Central Time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But the bottom line is we'll be back on the air in about an hour and 40 minutes from now at 3:45 p.m. Central, 4:45 p.m. Eastern with our hatch opening coverage to complete the journey of Loral O'Hara, Oleg Kononenko, and Nikolai Chub to the International Space Station. With Soyuz having docked in flawless fashion, we'll wrap it up for now. This is Mission Control Houston.